They used Machiavelli mindset as power dynamics to dominate you. But once you know how to turn it around, they'll be the ones bled dry because you stopped feeding the system that they were surviving on. Quick Machiavelli, in a nutshell, that is someone who is relating to you out of strategy instead of what is genuine or loving. But their strategy is totally masked, and it makes you feel like you finally have a stable person to lean on, and it's so easy and comfortable that you'll probably just willingly hand over your insecurities and fears to them. But make no mistake, they are not part of your support system. They are trying to position themselves higher than you. This, of course, happens clearly in intimate partnerships, but it's so much more pervasive than that. Seeing doesn't equal believing in this case, but that's also what makes it hard to believe even when it smacks you straight in the face. What I'm talking about is when you're in a group, like an offshoot of a class that you took. And it doesn't matter if it's a spiritual group, religion, or alien lovers unite. It happens in group chats, Discord servers, whatever. The Machiavelli come out of the woodwork. There's just something about people getting together like this, leaving a structured environment and starting from scratch. And they start scrambling to build a hierarchy. They want to be on top. If they're not, then everyone around them is stupid and shouldn't be there. People just start acting a fool. These people get crazy, especially if you start shining your light. And you're just sitting there being you. You're trying to add value and be normal. You just want to be around people who are genuinely kind, but your light is a threat to them. It makes them feel like they're losing power or influence or domination over others. So if people are listening to you and relating to you, resonating with your words, the mocks in the room have quietly declared war on you, and you have a critical decision to make. Fight or something else. If you can't beat them, join them. And I don't mean exactly what you might be thinking, but what if you did use their own strategy against them without being a jerk, of course? I'm talking about this to just elucidate for kind people like you how these traits can actually be used with ethics and grace. You're already the type of person who doesn't panic when someone else shines, and that means you don't need to diminish other people in order to regulate yourself. The ethical way to be Machiavellian means preserving all the power over your voice, mind, and emotions without being mean or manipulative. When someone is truly powerful, they don't need to squeeze other people dry to feel alive. So let's talk about each of those things. But right before we do that, be open to this. Every moment of every day, every single one of us is one decision away from hurting someone. It's a capacity we all have. So your challenge is not going to be to point out or pick that person's a mock and that person's not. And that's the power of the ear. Here's the reality. Some people are listening to find your weaknesses and to keep them in their back pocket so they can exploit them later. So it's going to be first in listening and taking note, like they do. But your reason for doing this is not to use it against them, not to create a smear campaign or a humiliation ritual. That said, one of the strongest mock traits is in their voice. They naturally control the way they talk to you because they know something that you don't. What they choose to talk about is based on what favors them, whether or not it hurts or disables you. And that's going to be something that you can discern from listening to them talk. When you really hone in on how they talk, notice how they always are strategically innocent. They use language that keeps them unaccountable, vague, and slippery. So listen for things like this. And I just want to caveat that sometimes these things are truly sincere. And that's why I said listen and take note. I'm trying to help you. Helpful people usually help, and you asked for it. Machiavelli people sometimes use help as a cover for control or criticism. I'm brutally honest. That means I don't filter, and I expect immunity for the hurtful things that I say. I just want peace. That means don't challenge me, don't disrupt the current power dynamic, or don't expose what's actually happening. Mock talk. That means now for you, controlling what and how much you say is key. Since kind and sincere people aren't a fan of being mean, sometimes we do assume that others are the same. Unfortunately, that is very, very wrong. But just because we don't act that way doesn't mean that we need to be pushovers or silence our own voice around other people just because they're louder or harsh. But also, there's a real difference between speaking in a way that holds weight and speaking in a way that leaks your energy. And most of us were never shown that difference growing up. We didn't learn the nuances between being authentic and just emotionally spilling all over the floor in front of people who have no business having that kind of access to you in the first place. If you can't discern the difference yet between speaking and leaking, you're going to keep getting blindsided after you have what you thought was a deep conversation, but then it ends up having you feeling drained, weird, and embarrassed. Control over your mind. This is why we have to have our mind in order. And that's the next thing on our checklist of how to use the power of Machiavelli ethically. So let me start with a warning. There's 3 mistakes that you're probably making, or certainly mistakes that a lot of people make just by speaking and not having your mind and emotions in order. But also, I'm going to give you techniques that help you know how to turn those mistakes into personal power. Each mistake and technique combo is going to get a bit more advanced, so let's start with the easiest. Mistake 1, getting it off your chest. It sounds like something honorable, but talking just because you think something inside you needs relief, it might be coming from a place of anxiety regulation, which means it could be unnecessary. You might want to be understood or validated because you're uncomfortable leaving things unsaid, or even it's out of need to control how you're being perceived. And that last one about control is the mock strategy. But when your words come from that place, it's probably not going to come out right, even if the words are technically honest. And I'm not advocating for choosing every word carefully and not being honest, or about sugarcoating or giving a compliment sandwich. But what I'm saying is you don't need to say something. That's a compulsion. Power comes from stopping and counting the stairs. What do I mean by counting the stairs? If you trust your intuition or spidey senses, as you might know it as, when you get that first hit, that subtle off feeling, when you're in the moment and about to say something unnecessary, listen to that and then choose to redirect. If you're new at the practice of stopping yourself, because it is a skill that we all need to build, count the stairs really quick. And you can act like you're just thinking, hold on a second. And that gives you the space to redirect. Mistake 2, not reading the room. Emotion plays a big role in having your mind under control, because sometimes we'll just say, well, I'm just expressing how I feel, as if that automatically makes it aligned and effective. But feeling something doesn't mean that it's best to be expressed in that moment or at all. You can feel something very real and still express it in a way that's completely off timing-wise. And even in the way that you say it, you'll be leaking your power juice right out the box. So another way to redirect control is using silence as power. Your loud and emotional reactions or even heartfelt apologies are fuel for people high on the mock spectrum. So do not give it to them unless it's truly necessary. This strategy goes along with listening. If you suspect you're in a power battle with a mock, let them reveal themselves when you stop filling the space with sound. I'm not saying don't ever talk or say how you feel. I'm saying choose the time, read the room. Sometimes it feels like you've just got to say it now. I used to be big on that. It's got to be said. But really, I should have just let them sit in their own stuff. And I realized later that part of what I was doing was trying to save someone else or do the right thing. But sometimes it's just not our business. We can actually not say something. And we can also just come back to it. It's important to just let the truth incubate. So, what I'm talking about is self-governance. We don't need to suppress ourselves, but it's more like being able to feel what you feel without immediately handing over the steering wheel. So, if you never learned early in life how to be open and safe at the same time, then trying to follow advice like just be open, it is not your friend. You end up blurting out things without realizing that there are consequences. And then later, or immediately after, you feel that misalignment. It feels cringe, but you don't know what to do about it, which is what the third and final mistake and technique combo is all about. Mistake 3, shadow influence. And this is advanced. It requires maturity and a willingness to point the finger back to yourself. And I think that we're all innately kind. Okay, I have to say there are actually people who are weirdly not innately kind, but the vast majority, especially that's you, if you've watched this far into my video, you're freaking kind. I mean, you're a nice freaking person. And I don't know why I'm saying freaking so much, but I just want to emphasize that. And I see you. But then why do you always end up looking like a villain after you talk? Oh, it's so insidious indeed. So this mistake happens because people are influenced by part of themselves that they're not aware of. Carl Jung would describe it as being taken over by the shadow aspects of your psyche. And a lot of us, especially if we've had to endure years of mistreatment, are speaking from this place because we're not connected to where our voice came from or lack of voice. So it truly is a head trip when we meet a strong Machiavellian. But what I really think you should notice is quite simple. You can feel when someone is speaking from a place of kindness and consideration. And you can feel when they're speaking from self-interest or from something unresolved within themselves, like when they're overcompensating for their own fears or perceived lack. I know you can feel it. So when you do, I'm suggesting this technique, introspection in the moment. That is to pause before saying something so that you can speak reminders to yourself. I can trust myself, and I'm the only one who holds the key to my power. This is accessing a powerful mind to use it to control your voice. The pause is the action that allows your words to follow the energy of personal power. When you're tempted to let your emotions have the most power, ask yourself first, is this fear talking? Do I just want people to know how I feel? Am I advocating for something that is not my battle? If you're comfortable with introspection, let me push you ever so slightly. When you pause, can you ask yourself if you're wanting to say something so that people can see you a certain way or act a certain way? Because that is manipulation, my friend. Psychology research shows that these mock traits don't just belong to those people over there. They exist on a spectrum, and they exist within each of us. And I got this from a paper I was reading on this called Ethical Ideologies of the Machiavellian, which was published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. Check it out. But either way, I'm pointing this out because when anyone manipulates or tries to control others, or tries to control others' reactions or how they see you, that's disempowerment, that's fear talking, and that's simply your shadow for you to work on, or their shadow. And while manipulation works as a control strategy, it's unnecessarily mean, and you already know that you can get the same result for yourself, but in a way that doesn't extort. And that's actually compassion. Let me caveat that we're not trying to control if someone feels hurt or not. You can't control that. You can never please everyone, so don't even try. Bonus primer on dark traits. So I know we've been diving deep and maybe I'm asking too much of you, but if you've stuck around this long, why not let me share a quick primer on how to look at your dreams to spot if someone is using their dark traits against you. And if that sounds weird and crazy, but you stay for that, well, viewer discretion advised. Dreams showing mock traits. Dreams are a way that you can start to see if someone is really aligned with you or not. Dreams complement reality and your intuition about a person or situation. In general, Machiavellian traits don't show up in dreams as someone being obviously manipulative or villainous, although they could for sure, but sometimes characters are in your dream that are normal, nice enough, but there's weirdness to it. The conversation feels flat or slightly rehearsed, or like you're talking to a version or a hologram of them, but not them. That's the first place to look. But I specifically pulled out 4 different dream scenarios that have shown up in actual dreams so that you can recognize it easily. Included, but not included. You're in a group and you're technically part of what's happening, but you don't feel like it. People are talking, but you don't really matter in the discussion. Confusion. They'll say something kind or supportive, and then in the next moment, their behavior doesn't match it at all. In the dream, it feels confusing, like, wait, what just happened? Feeling sour robot. The person is saying all the right things, like a programmed robot. They might even be helpful, but there's no warmth or emotional presence. It feels mechanical. Or the dream character has a sour face or is carrying or bringing something literally sour. Money. Money or exchange shows up in dreams a lot. If you're giving something and not getting something back, or there's an uneven exchange, or something just feels off about how value is expressed in the dream, that's pointing to how you are valued in that relationship or dynamic. Or it's showing that you were maybe overgiving, or where something is just not reciprocal. Money as a control tactic is actually a much bigger convo that's better suited for another video, which is coming soon to a theater near you. But in the meantime, watch any of my 3 videos on cults, humiliation rituals, or countering manipulators. And in the vein of value and money, was this valuable? I'd love to hear your thoughts about what was the most valuable part to you. And if you want all this in one neat document, join my free school community, and you got it. Link is in the comments and top of the description. Bye-bye.